Well, I think as you've begun to hear, there are two very different kinds of conversations we could have here. We can talk about religion as it is, for most people most of the time, and we can talk about what religion could be, or should be, or perhaps what it is for the tiniest minority of people. And I just want you to be aware of the difference there, because it could get lost. It's true that some people define God as pure consciousness, or as being synonymous with the laws of nature. But if we talk about consciousness and the laws of nature, we won't be talking about the God that most of our neighbors believe in, which is a personal God who hears our prayers and occasionally answers them. So I just want you to be sensitive to this, because if Michael or I say something derogatory about Islam or Christianity, which seems possible, the response from the other side shouldn't mention quantum mechanics. And it shouldn't reference a notion of God that is so denuded of doctrine as to more or less be synonymous with pure mystery or pure information or pure energy or pure anything. So I wanted to plant a flag there where you all can see it. Because the God that our neighbors believe in is essentially an invisible person. It's a creator deity who created the universe to have a relationship with one species of primate. Lucky us. and he's got galaxy upon galaxy to attend to, but he's especially concerned with what we do, and he's especially concerned with what we do while naked. And he almost certainly disapproves of homosexuality. And he's created this cosmos as a vast laboratory in which to test our powers of credulity. And the test is this: can you believe in this God on bad evidence? Which is to say, on faith. And if you can, you will win an eternity of happiness after you die. And it's precisely this sort of God and this sort of scheme that you must believe in if you're going to have any kind of future in politics in this country. No matter what your gifts. I mean, you could be an unprecedented genius. You could look like George Clooney. You could have $1 billion, and you could have the social skills of Oprah, and you are going nowhere in politics in this country unless you believe in that sort of God. So we can talk about anything we want. I'm happy to talk about consciousness. But please notice that when we migrate away from the God that is really shaping human events, or the God talk that is really shaping human events in our world at this moment.
Gene?
Well, you know, as I'm listening to this, and I'm very much aware of the variety of stories that are in our midst, and I began to think about an old Aboriginal woman who I met right in the center of Australia. And I happened to ask her, I said, Maisie, how do we humans differ from wallaby and kangaroo and koala bird? And she said to me, why, mate, we're the ones who can tell the stories about all the others, which I thought was one of the best definitions of humanity I'd ever heard. So we're going to hear a lot of stories here, and I'd like to give you some idea of where I'm coming from with a particular story that is the single most important story of my life. When I was 5 years old, I was sent to Catholic school, and my father, the comedy writer who was writing for Bob Hope at the time, used to help me along by giving me interesting questions to ask the priests and nuns in the morning. Like when Jesus rose, was that because God filled him full of helium? Or the one that really occurred to me, when Jesus rose, Sister Teresa, did Jesus ever have to go to the bathroom? Well, that did it. And she got furious at me. She lisped very badly, and she said, blasphemy, blasphemy, sacrilege and blasphemy. And for each question, she gave me often 1,000,000 years in purgatory. And at the end of the first grade, I had 300 million years in purgatory to my credit. Well, I went home, and my father thought it was hilarious this had happened. He said, you think you got problems, kid? Wait till you see what they did to a real saint. Wait till you see how they hog-tied poor old Bernadette. And he took me to this great movie playing at the time called The Song of Bernadette. And when I saw the Virgin Mary appear in the grotto, I thought, boy, that's for me. And I ran home, and we had a closet where the dog had just had 9 puppies, and I pushed them away, and I got down, and I crossed myself, and I said, Virgin Mary, please show up in the closet. I'll give up candy for a week, 2 weeks, okay? Now you be there, okay? I'll count to 10. And I kept counting to higher numbers and giving up, chicken with garlic sauce and stuffed artichokes, but she never showed up. And then I heard my father enter laughing. He was always laughing. And immediately this whole universe began to laugh. And years later, when I could read Dante in the original, the great lines, del riso dell'universo, the joy that spins the universe, this great symphony of interrelation, of meaning, of goodness, of laughter, and of science. There was some aspect, even to my 6-year-old mind, myth, cosmology, science, spirituality, health, education. It was all there. It was all part of a dynamic relationship. And this is what I have sought in my work with cultures and people all over the world. Goodness, meaning, relationship, science, art, and laughter.
Gene, thank you. Let me start with you, Deepak. What scientific proof or evidence of any sort can you muster to support your assertion that there is, for lack of a better term, God or some sort of intelligence at the heart of the universe?
Before I answer that, I think I want to say something, address something that Sam Harris said. He said God is very concerned about what we're doing naked. Well, what we're doing naked is the very mechanics of creation. So we don't have to be embarrassed about sometimes, at least now, yes, sometimes. Okay, what scientific proof? I think science is, and again, in deference to Sam Harris, he said, don't go the way of quantum physics. I think I'm going to have to say that science is now in a process of overthrowing the climactic overthrow of the superstition of materialism. That everything that we call matter comes from something that is not material. That the essential nature of the physical world is that it's not physical. That the essential stuff of the universe is non-stuff. Call it what you will. And science also tells us, and if there are any scientists who want to disagree with them, please come up during the question and answer session. Science tells us that nature is a discontinuity, that it's an on-off phenomenon, that there are gaps between every 2 ons, where you find a field of possibilities, a field of pure potentiality. Science doesn't call it God, but what is God if not the immeasurable potential of all that was, all that is, and all that will be? Science also tells us that this is a field of non-locality, where everything is correlated with everything else. My adversaries are going to point out, no, everything, God is explained by neurology. Well, I hope today, Michael, that you will convert from a skeptic to a neuroskeptic, because your science is really frozen in the dungeons of conservatism and in the dungeons of orthodoxy. Today, science tells us that the essential nature of reality is non-local correlation. Everything is connected to everything else. That there's hidden creativity. There are quantum leaps of creativity. That there's something called the observer effect, where intention orchestrates space-time events, which we then measure as movement and motion and energy and matter. And addressing Sam, we can have a personal relationship with this intelligence, because we have a consciousness that is part of this sea of consciousness. Rumi, the great Sufi poet, said, you're not just a drop in the ocean, you're the mighty ocean in the drop. And all you have to do is understand the principles of science and understand that you have within you the resources to intuitively grasp this mystery. But one of the things we have to do today, my friends at Caltech, you have given us this opportunity that you have to stop being the jihadists and the Vatican of conservative and orthodox science, which is not relevant anymore.